of time and space. Everywhere and anywhere, every star that ever was. Where do you want to start?
We're halfway through the Daleks Master Plan and we've mugged off the tin pepper pots with a false terranium core, and now it just remains for us to head to the nearest police station and grass them up to the filth. I, Mavic Chen, am Ian.
And I, Mavic Chen, am Mark. And welcome to All of Time and Space. I like that. Yes, what have you been up to lately, Ian? Anything exciting?
I've been working very hard here in this room.
Obviously, I mean, that's...
I've been to the shops a couple of times for,
stuff.
Provisions. I was on Strangers in Space recently.
Oh, yeah. I hear that's a very good podcast.
It's fantastic. It's my, probably now, because of this, obviously, it's my second favourite Doctor Who podcast of all time.
Oh. So what's your first favourite? Probably Crinoid, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably Crinoid or Who's He? Yeah, one of those. Yeah. No, it's a couple of shows have kind of gone off for a couple of months, so we're making hay while the sun shines and popping up all over the place.
Well, it's always nice to give a shout out, isn't it, if you've been on someone else's show, just to,
Yeah.
I'm sure there can't be that many people who listen to us that aren't aware of Strangers in Space, but it's nice to give them a little plug. I've been moonlighting on Gallifrey's Most Wanted with Ross and Jeff. So that's a fun podcast. They mix it up a bit. They have two strands on their show. So they've got the main Gallifrey's Most Wanted, which is usually Ross and his friend Vic. And they sort of come at it from the perspective, he's an old Who fan, she's a new Who fan. And they just have really nice chilled out chats about whatever story they choose to talk about. And then they have an offshoot of that called the Runcible Report, which is usually Ross and Jeff, otherwise known as, well, it used to be the City of Jeff, but now he's, oh blimey, I can't remember what he's called now, something like the something Gothic, Gallifreyan Gothic by Jeff.
Oh, I see. Wow.
Anyway, just look for Jeff. I mean, there can't be that many on the internet,
Jeff, where are you? Well, it's interesting you say that, because I've been thinking for quite a while that we should try and emulate that kind of style of show and be very, very thoughtful, quiet, chilled out and relaxed, softly spoken and calm. Yeah. So, Mark, who's our guest on this episode?
It's Ben Schneider.
Oh, well.
Hello, boys! How are you? Good to see you, boys. Hello.
Hi, Ben.
Hello from Indiana, the working man's Illinois, as we like to say here. Good to see you both. This is your first two-parter, man. Your first two-parter. I can't believe it. Cannot believe it.
It's an epic story with an epic guest.
Yeah, seriously, though, thank you for letting me sleep on your floor this past month. That was really kind and really uncomfortable, so thank you.
Yeah, you really should have bought more than one change of pants.
Well, I really broke them in, so what are you going to do?
So moving on, I am going to read out the synopsis from the target novel, and we'll have a clip, and when we come back, we'll be concluding our chat about the Daleks Master Plan. So this is where we are in the story. The Daleks Master Plan is well underway with the Time Destructor, the most deadly machine ever devised. They will conquer the universe. Only one person stands in their way, the Doctor, for he has stolen the precious terranium core which is vital to activate the machine. Travelling through time and space, the Doctor and his companions are forever on the move in case the Daleks track them down. But after several months, to their horror, the TARDIS indicates that they are being followed. And we'll be back with our guest Ben after this.
Dust Nothing but dust.
Time to strike that. What's left of it?
Every Chen's uranium core has finally burnt itself out.
Wish Sarah could have seen the end.
Yes, my boy. So do I. You know, Stephen, the one thing that Sarah lived for was to see the total destruction of the Daleks. Well, now it's all over. Without her help, this could never have been achieved.
What is it?
Millions of years of progress. Reversed back. That's all that remains of a Dalek.
Let's go, Doctor. I've seen enough of this.
Well, my boy, we finally rid this planet of Daleks.
Brent! Katerina!
Sarah. What a waste. What a terrible waste.
And welcome back. So we are joined once more by the delightful Ben Schneider from Indiana.
Oh,
Ben.
Delightful. What do you know? Now, guys, it's very good to see you both. I mean, I am imagining what you look like, so, you know. But I got to let you know, this is your first two-parter. You very kindly let me come on last month to talk about the first 6 episodes. And now, I realized last episode I was a little too excited, you know, stumbling over my words, stuttering like crazy. It's just because I was so excited to be part of Doctor Who fandom, to be on this podcast, to talk about this particular story. And I've taken the time between then and now to reevaluate, calm down, take stock, weigh the good and the bad. And yeah, I still think that this is awesome. This is the greatest story of all time, man. And I got to tell you, man.
So you're going with the measured approach there. Yeah.
I realize there are people out there who may not agree. Hell, I realize there are people on this podcast who may not agree, and that's okay. But Mark, I do have one request to ask. Could you please watch the clock? Because I want to have time to give closing arguments on why I think this is the greatest story. So
fine.
Just let me know,
okay.
all right?
Yeah. Well, I'm behind you 100% there, my friend, so don't worry. You have all the time you need.
All right, buddy.
Did in the brief period of time between recording the first episode and recording this episode, Ben, did you manage to write any more of that song?
You know, I got tired of that song. But I did write a second one. Ready?
Oh.
Chen's an alien for sure. 'Cause he holds a pencil like no human has before. Chen's an alien for sure. That's about as far as I got with that one. So.
Yes, amazing.
Wonderful. One of these days I'll get that bar chord right, I swear. But I stand by it. Chen is an alien. And I think the first episode we're going to talk about here, Feast of Stephen, will prove that Chen is an alien. Well, maybe not this one, but yeah.
No. Yeah, Feast of Stephen. I mean, this one is probably the least likely episode to ever come back of the missing episodes, just because I don't think it actually got sold out to any of the other countries, did it? Am I right in saying
that is a crime. I think I have actually heard that. There was also some rumor that they gave it to William Hartnell as a present, like they gave the film to him, but I don't think that's ever actually came out. So
let's just nip round his house now and have a look.
Just a rumor. So now, how do you guys feel about this episode? It's a little bit. I take it people are kind of about it, you know.
I mean, yeah, because obviously we left on the cliffhanger, didn't we? Of there was a toxic atmosphere and they mustn't leave the TARDIS under any circumstances.
Yep.
And it turned out it was just London. Admittedly, that is, it's fairly toxic.
Ian, what do you think about this one?
You've gone very quiet, Ian.
What do I think about? I think this is the worst episode of Doctor Who I've ever seen. Obviously,
don't hold back, Ian.
They land at this police station. They muck about for 5 minutes. Then they leave. What was the point of that? Then they go to some kind of Hollywood film set. Everyone shouts for 20 minutes and then they leave. What was the point of that? It's the ultimate example where this story just kind of, in order to keep going, just you think they've just written any old crap and put it on the screen. It's just pointless and tiresome.
Well,
that's one perspective.
That's one perspective, yes.
You have to remember, Ian, that when this went out, this is the first ever Doctor Who Christmas special.
Absolutely.
Yeah, forget your Christmas Invasion or any of those.
Yeah.
None of Christmas Carol.
None of your good stuff.
It was thought at the time that the average viewer wouldn't be sitting in front of the TV on Christmas Day, so rather than have some vital plot point explained in that Christmas Day episode, they thought they'd make it a bit of a runaround, so it didn't really affect anyone's enjoyment of the overall story if they didn't get to see it on Christmas Day.
In which case, I take it all back. It's a very sophisticated way of pausing the narrative arc and providing some kind of gentle entertainment for an audience, most of whom may not even be aware of the show, and it's just something they can sit back and enjoy, perhaps with some turkey or some figgy pudding.
I knew you secretly loved it. This is making me think, you guys, on that podcast that you guys did about the Romans, one of you, or it was a guest maybe, or maybe all three, you made the point that episode didn't really represent how ancient Rome was really like ancient Rome. It was more like the TARDIS landed in a movie about ancient Rome.
Yeah.
There was a gladiator film 1 second, then a carry-on film the next, and everybody loves it. So how is the TARDIS landing in 1930s Hollywood any different, really?
It's very meta, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's trying to be meta.
And honestly, my defense of this fun episode is that there is this mantra that has developed in the new Who fandom that the TARDIS never takes the Doctor where he wants, but always where he is actually needed. And sometimes that idea is really laid out thick and overly dramatic. They'll be like, "Oh, my darling, I always take you where you were needed to be. I love you." And I get a little bit tired of that. So I always love the idea that the TARDIS is totally random and we simply do not see televised all of those boring random landings, except for this episode. They actually decided to make an episode of, just the average everyday where the TARDIS is just, screwing off. So
headcanon is a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if for like 50 plus years the TARDIS has had a streak of constantly landing in dangerous places, doesn't it stand to reason that every now and then it hits this odd streak where it keeps landing in ridiculous places?
Well, they've got to have a rest at some point because, they've been chased here, there and everywhere by the Daleks and various other villain types.
One observation I would make is that when they're in the film set in the 30s, they do sort of fleetingly bump into Charlie Chaplin, which makes this the first celebrity historical.
And they also...
Bing Crosby, was it?
Bing Crosby, too. So why isn't this held up in the same regard as the episodes where they meet, like, King James and
Charles
Dickens and
Shakespeare?
The Brigadier. Why isn't this all held up in that same aura? I just don't know.
I couldn't begin to speculate why this episode isn't held up in that august company. I don't know. I don't know what... I mean, it was just nonsense.
Didn't you feel like, though, that Hartnell was having fun? Didn't that just feel nice?
I mean, no one cares if I have fun doing my job. He's just doing his job. He's just got to save the universe.
A sick man being
give me
given
that.
a chance to let loose and have a bit of fun on Christmas Day.
A sick television star. He had his pick of the women in West London. Look at me, I'm on telly, show us your bum. I've got no sympathy at all. He's just doing his job. and he does it very well here. He is clearly having fun, and it is where you can follow it. It's very entertaining. What do we think of that infamous closing moment where he breaks the fourth wall, turns to the TV audience and says, "And a Merry Christmas to you at home"?
I love it. I think it's perfect.
That moment bothered me for only one reason, and it is because
You've got no soul, Ben. That's why.
No, it's because right up to that moment, the Doctor is serving Sarah and Stephen drinks. And according to Stephen Moffat, Hartnell was a sexist, chauvinist monster. So the way Stephen Moffat remembers this is that, the Doctor was probably sitting on a chair insisting that Sarah go in the kitchen, bring him his slippers and my pipe because it is Christmas. And this just proves that Stephen Moffat is full of shit. So yeah, I love it.
Wow. So what's happened is I've dared to criticise a very poor episode of 60s Doctor Who, and in some kind of weird podcasting revenge hit, you're now coming at me through Stephen Moffat. This is extraordinary.
That's not an image that I want.
You get me.
This is welcome to all of Passive and Aggressive with me, Mavic Chen.
Oh my gosh.
Hi, Ian Martin. It's got a ring to it.
Yes, it has. So, did you want to drag out the pain, or did you want to move on to Volcano straight away?
Well, I think we ought to. Oh, by the way, I took Ben's advice when we had a chat last time, and he suggested I should check out a different reconstruction from the standard loose cannon.
Right.
So I went on to a website that rhymes with Mailydocian and typed in the search bar for Doctor Who reconstructions. And there's a very talented chap called Josh Snares who does lots of Doctor Who related videos on YouTube as well. And he has done, I think, a really cracking job of the reconstruction on Daleks Master Plan. It's a lot more kinetic than the loose cannon. I suppose, obviously, technology's moved on quite a long way since they did the original version of that.
It's got a lot of movement in it. And
it's not just the movement, it's also, he uses like little film techniques, so he'll do like a pull focus and things like that. Just tiny little things that help to make it feel more like a TV show and less like a series of photographs just played one after another.
It's kind of funny. I've seen the recon so many times that in my head, the recon is almost the default episode, and the Josh Snares treatment to me seems like a special edition in a weird way. That's just how sad I am. But what are you going to do?
Did you seek that out, Ian, as well, or did you stick with the?
I haven't. No, I will do after this because it does sound interesting, and I am in a period of sort of accidentally watching special editions without knowing it. Day of the Daleks, take note. So yes, I will have a look at that because it does sound very exciting to see what can be done now with today's technology, even by someone who, Josh Snares, if I'm right, is sort of about 12 years old, and I so
you're only jealous.
I am extremely jealous because he's clearly got a grasp of not only technical possibilities but also kind of the mise en scène and the kind of
he knows his onions.
Authorship of television. So he's clearly 2 years away from being a Big Finish producer or something, and I'm
no doubt.
and I'm not.
And to be completely fair, I've always got the impression from watching his stuff that Daleks Master Plan is his favorite episode. So in all fairness, he should actually be here instead of me. So Josh, I'm really sorry.
Okay, Mark, can you give Josh a ring and we'll see if we can do a little switcheroo before we move on.
Ben, do you mind holding just because if I can't get hold of him?
You're breaking up, Ben. You're breaking up. I can't.
Bye.
I can't hear you.
Now,
Volcano.
Now, I have to say though, in the middle of Feast of Stephen, they do make a passing reference to the Tyranium, and Sarah was like, "Oh, I've had so much fun, I forgot all about those pesky Daleks." And the Doctor says, "Hey, Don't forget, they also have a time and space machine that can follow us. So they were kind of setting up the idea that there's going to be
a nice
another
little bit of misdirection there.
Yeah, so then when we get to Volcano, we're a little bit surprised, maybe.
Well, I mean, yes and no. Mainly because they say that the time ship has followed them to that location, and then it cuts to the Daleks in the control room, and their spaceship or a time ship has just turned up. Sorry, the TARDIS. I have to use the correct nomenclature.
Oh, by the way, we should also make note that Volcano was also the very first New Year's special ever, January 1st, 1966.
Correct. It's also the first
Setting
episode
the template.
to be named after a U2 single, so that's exciting.
So just remember that shit. Noel Hartnell was there first. So, and actually, I did try watching this episode directly after episode 6 just to see how much you would lose if you did miss the Christmas special, and it kind of works because the very first scene is the Daleks saying that they are going to test the core that they just got at the end of episode 6. So that is a direct plot connection. But like you said earlier, they don't follow up on the whole poison atmosphere thing that happens on the Doctor and Companions part of it. So
there's plenty of other Doctor Who serials that do that kind of thing too. So you can't be too harsh on it.
There is. I noticed it when I watched it again today. There's so much exposition sort of ladled liberally all over the first 5 minutes of Volcano. Not a lot happens apart from the alien schemers on the Galactic Council sort of hiss and whisper at each other about their plans, and you're brought fully back up to speed. So it's quite. Yeah. I don't want to use the word sophisticated, but it is quite effective.
One bit that really stood out for me was when they twig that the Terranium core is slightly dodgy, and the main Dalek comes up to Mavic Chen and says, "This is obviously your fault. You supplied the Terranium." And he's like, "No, it can't be true. It came from Uranus." At which point I had a little giggle because I'm very childish.
I mean,
I think there's something for everybody in this, man. I'm telling you. So
I thought it was very interesting when they're gathered around the time destructor and it's obviously not working, and not one of them has the presence of mind to do a Control-Alt-Delete.
Well, it didn't really have a keyboard. I don't know if you noticed that prop. It was, I think it was one of those swipey things, maybe.
Well, could they not have done a swipey?
Is that how you do a compute? Oh, okay.
That's what Microsoft was doing in the 60s. Yeah. It was
gotcha.
It was swipe-based technology.
In the space 60s, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of cool how, when the Chen, Salation, Trantis, they were talking about the what they call the fugitives. And Chen admits that 2 of them are from Earth, but the third creature is a unknown. He's from another galaxy, and they don't know who he is. And I think that's kind of cool because what they're talking about is the Daleks' information on the Doctor. All they have at this point is not much knowledge on him. They don't know about Gallifrey. They don't know about time. Well, of course, no one does because it hasn't been thought up yet. But it's kind of cool that at this point they only know him as a time-space traveler. And even later on, by I think it's evil of the Daleks, they say that they can't use him to find the human factor because they don't really know why. They just say that he's traveled too much and he's more than human. So it's cool how at this point he's still a mystery to them, but they don't really know what he is. It's like this legend is slowly building. And
that is interesting because obviously we know now with the benefit of hindsight that if they did one of their scans, they could see that he's got 2 hearts and a respiratory bypass system, and they might go down to their sort of records department, and in some dusty filing cabinet they might find a little manila folder that says, "Yeah, he's probably a Time Lord."
And there'll probably be a female Jackie Tyler type Dalek who'll go, "Is there anything else he's got 2 of?"
Now, of course, before they get to the volcano, as in the title, they go to the New Year's party which I'm assuming that's somewhere in where is that taking place at? Where they're in the fountain and running around?
I was looking like, is that Trafalgar Square?
Trafalgar Square or Piccadilly Circus or some fairly central London locale.
Because I just thought it was kind of neat how they kept cutting between that scene and then the Daleks where they were doing their countdown for the time machine to get there, because the New Year's festival usually has to do with a countdown. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of neat.
It was good, and then it sets it up for that line which by 1965 or 66, whenever this was broadcast standards, it was probably a great line where the Doctor goes, "I've seen humans getting this excited and happy before. Oh, where was that, Doctor? The relief of Mafeking." Which, I think that was a very good line.
Lucky old Mafeking.
Yeah, absolutely. There was also, is it subsequent to that, they sort of, for 30 seconds, appear at a cricket match?
Yeah.
I don't know what the point of that was.
Fun. Absolute fun.
Come on, Ian.
I didn't have fun. I was just irritated by it. Why are you mucking around? I won't have all this silly bother.
It's just all these little moments, all these little character fun moments that I think just make this thing rich. And I'm sorry, but I love all these little side trips and stuff. It's just keeping it interesting to me. And what's funny is on the recon, I'm assuming that's one of the loose cannon guys wearing cricket gear and running up to a police box and acting all shocked. I mean, I just find that, good on you, sir. Well done, So, but then they finally get to the volcano planet, Tygus. I think it's Tygus or Tigris. And look who shows up. I was so happy. We get Time Meddler Part 2. Come on, man. This is great.
So would you have seen the Time Meddler before you heard your soundtrack CD when you got it?
Yes, because I had made it through all of the actual existing episodes.
Okay.
And in one of those Peter Haining books, one of the pieces of evidence that they were giving for the Master Plan being this monumental thing is that they actually have a returning villain, the monk, come back. So I knew he was going to be showing up.
Okay.
And it was just the minute he starts talking, I don't know. It was great. Now, your episode for Time Meddler has not come out, so I don't know how you guys feel about the monk. Could you care to let me know?
I think in terms of the character, I think I'm sure I remember we both liked the character, although one of us had misgivings about the story.
Mark, what was your problem with it? I mean, come on.
I know,
he is absolutely delightful.
He's
got this Troughton-esque quality about him.
He has, doesn't he? I think he's great. Such fun.
All right, Ian, what is it?
Let's be honest. The underpinning story of the Time Meddler was rather slight, and while there was nothing wrong with that, I remember feeling it kind of lacked the gravitas you might want from a season finale. But I remember coming away from it thinking the monk was a brilliant invention and a character that I really wanted to see a lot more of. So I'm very glad that for his second appearance, here he is straight away in the following season, for the first of what I'm absolutely confident will be many, 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 many return visits.
Absolutely, yes. And I don't care that he's still dressed up as a monk. I don't know why I don't care.
If he changes, he won't be called the monk anymore. He'll be called something else. I mean, the Doctor doesn't exactly change his clothes very often, so why should the monk? He's clearly a man of habit.
Good job coordinating that one. Okay.
Wow.
Oof.
We've really sunk that low.
Everyone's gone very quiet. Am I going to get the sack?
Get the hair shirt. Oh, man. So, okay, all right. What do you think about the way he fixes his broken lock?
Well, it was all very
convenient.
Yeah, I mean, it was a brilliant sort of jeopardy. A great way of placing them in intense peril. The TARDIS is taken away from you. You can't get into it. I've melted the lock. And you could therefore have stranded them there for 2 or 3 episodes if you were, I don't know, desperate to fill time until the end of your massive dramatic story. So for the Doctor to just sort of, magically use his ring and a sunbeam and some unicorn dust to fix the lock in about 3 minutes seemed like such a wasted opportunity.
See, I think it's good that they had the ring for, the whole time he's been in the role. I assumed it was just some sort of, affectation to being some kind of, East End gangster type. But it turns out he's been carrying it all this time as a spare way of getting back into the TARDIS if he gets locked out.
I think it does have special powers we've seen before, like was it the Web Planet? He's using it to hypnotize a big ant or something. I can't remember exactly, but it's funny. I've seen color photos of the ring, and the stone looks blue. And I used to have this fan theory back in 2005 that the tip of the Ninth Doctor's Sonic had the same crystal from William Hartnell's ring. But that was all just silly talk, I guess.
And that came from Metebelis?
Probably. Ooh, even
Maybe.
better.
Oh,
even better.
God. Yeah. It all links. Oh, how wonderful. What a great thing. The Unified
very
Theory of
fan-wonky.
Everything by Ben Schneider.
Thank you.
Doctor Who solved.
I can make it all work, man. Just give me enough time.
That's incredible.
But it is a very easy way to solve that little problem. But at the same time, it kind of occurred to me that it's not like a magic wand. It didn't do a complete miracle the way the modern Sonic does, because even though he got them in the door, he still has to fix it. So the beginning of the next episode is a lot of it is dealing with them trying to find a place where they can land to have enough room and time to sort of fix it. And so it's not a complete get out of jail free card.
It's true, and I suppose it's a question of how seriously we're supposed to take the monk. I mean, if he does manage to trap the Doctor for a significant amount of time, that obviously makes him more of a genuine menace, whereas he's clearly there to be sort of bumbling and slightly incompetent, and his best laid plans are very easily reversed by the Doctor, because the Doctor is, our very clever, wily hero. So I suppose that's why that happens in that way. But I just worry that maybe it devalues the character of the monk and makes him, out to be something of an idiot.
Well, I wonder if the producers thought that too, because they never really brought him back after that, which I think is a shame, because I like that he's not a maniacal evil master type villain. He's just he's like, I think in the Egypt episode he says it's a shame we're having this feud. Like, he calls their relationship a feud. It isn't this dynamic power struggle where one's trying to kill the other or take over the universe. They're basically having this little give and take back and forth. And I part of me likes that relationship better than the relationship between the Doctor and the Master. Do you know how at the end of Terror of the Autons, when the Master escapes, and I think Brigadier and Joe, they're saying, is the Master going to show up a second time? And the Doctor says, yes, I'm kind of looking forward to it. And he smiles.
Yeah.
And that always kind of sat wrong with me, because didn't hundreds of people die here during this episode? And so you're looking forward to clashing again with this mass murderer who's going to kill a bunch of more people just so you can have fun. And I don't know. That just always kind of sat wrong.
That's true,
me.
and that has continued throughout the Doctor and the Master's relationship, as recently as Series 10, where the Doctor's doing everything he can to rehabilitate Missy because he still fundamentally wants to be mates. Whereas going back to the monk, they have this relationship which is kind of like two schoolboys who have a feud, and the monk clearly doesn't want to be spending his time getting revenge on the Doctor. He just wants to be out having fun and titting about. So he's kind of very reluctantly locking horns and trying to redress the balance. But his lack of, I think, underpinning actual evil is possibly why he's not very good as a foe, and that presumably is why they didn't bring him back, because they thought, well, we could do this better with, I don't know, the War Chief in a couple of years. So let's keep our powder dry on evil opposing Time Lords.
I wonder if it would be interesting if they had a story where the monk was sort of put in a corner where he had no choice. Like, would he go full evil, or would he just sort of go the other way? And I don't know. I think part of the thing with the monk that I like, that I can't separate from the character, is I like the actor. I like how the actor plays him, and the actual the character has been brought back a couple of times on Big Finish, if you listen to those, and it's okay, but it's something where I really like Butterworth. I like how Butterworth plays him, and I'm not as into the character when it's not him. And so that just might be me. I don't know, but
yeah, that's a fair point. Did you read? There was a New Adventure. There's a very good podcast episode about the New Adventures, by the way, on the Nerdology feed.
Oh yeah, who are the guests and presenters?
I couldn't possibly remember. I know that Dr. the Lord R. Matt Barber is on there, holding forth very expertly, and there's some sort of tongue-tied gibbering twit interviewing him. But there was a new adventure called No Future, which was kind of set in roughly the sort of middle of the New Adventures run, where for the preceding 5 books there have been things going wrong or things have been changed in the universe. And in No Future, you finally come face to face with the architect of all this, and it is the monk, and it is presumably the monk as played by Peter Butterworth.
Oh, really?
And that's a divisive book. I mean, Paul Cornell doesn't rate it very highly amongst his own output, but for a sort of unexpectedly late return to the franchise, that was quite a surprise to see the monk back there, and I think he did some of his finest work in that story. Again, he lacked basic evil. He was
okay.
He was still doing it as a kind of more of a schoolboy vendetta rather than any kind of concerted effort to cause, evil or as Mark says, conquer the universe. He just wants to be a pain in the Harris, and he managed it quite successfully.
I think there's room for that. Like, when you have a enemy like the Daleks and Mavic Chen, who are just complete insane and murderous, it's kind of nice to have some enemies that don't actually want to kill you; they just want to best you. So, but to me, and again, this is my opinion, I love how all of these little pieces work together to make this huge, massive story work. Like, part of sure, they're having this chase where the Daleks time machine is chasing them, and then they introduce the monk to kind of throw you off and think that it's the Daleks chasing them, but it turns out to be the monk, and then it's just, I don't know, it just all kind of works in this weird, interesting way to me, and they end up in Egypt.
Yes, in episode, episode 9?
9, yeah.
Golden Shower. Sorry,
yes.
Golden Death. Golden Death.
That comes after the Golden Shower. Okay. So, I like the Egypt setting. What do you guys think?
I think it's great. It's something I do miss because they don't tend to go historical as often later down the line, particularly really after Troughton. You don't see too many historicals at all, and it's a shame because I love it when they go back in time. It's great fun, and I think it's just a really fascinating part of history as well. So yeah, just to have them in the middle of the construction of the pyramids, and it's fun to have it all kicking off. And
was there some sort of a contemporary drama on the BBC going on about Egypt? Because they've got so many props and so many little paintings everywhere. It just seems amazing that if they would have made all that from scratch just for 2 episodes, that's incredible to me, because some of it looks great,
It's probably left over from Blue Peter or something.
Every school child in the UK has to do a project on ancient Egypt when they're 7. And I imagine they managed to populate all the sets using stuff that they took from the local Ealing primary school.
Child slave labour is the answer, Ben.
Absolutely. That's how the pyramids got built.
How are you going to get those pyramids made, man? Yeah.
Exactly.
It's kind of unexpected, because the fact that they're in Egypt doesn't really... They basically could have landed anywhere and had
doesn't
these
really impact
these
on
things.
the story, does it?
And that's kind of interesting, because they could have had an entire story set in ancient Egypt, completely separate from this. And it's funny, because in a way that might have been a can of worms, because it's kind of nice that this is just the setting. So there's no boring plot about the Doctor being a god or mistaken for a god and being the one who had to come up with the pyramids, or there's no plot about how it's aliens making the Egypts. Exactly.
It would have been very much the Aztecs meets the Mythmakers, wouldn't it?
Right.
And you're quite right. The Doctor would have ultimately designed something which is iconic, or he would have had to smash off the nose of the Sphinx or something.
And it's so this is just a fun backdrop to actually just sort of play in. It's like the cricket field. It's just something fun that they. I don't know.
What I thought when I watched it back today was when the Daleks pop up in ancient Egypt and start sort of immediately exterminating all the Egyptians they possibly can. Mm-hmm. You think, do they not understand the concept of the butterfly effect? Because they might kill, Mavic Chen's great grandfather and invalidate the timeline. But it depends if we think he's a human or not, obviously.
Yeah.
But
I think what you're failing to recognise there, Ian, is that Daleks don't give a shit about anyone else apart from the Daleks.
There's also the fact.
Fair enough. Yeah.
There's also the fact that Peter Butterworth is there, and I think the Butterworth effect cancels out the butterfly.
Yeah, touche.
There's your episode title for this week, the Butterworth Effect.
Nice.
Now, speaking as a balding man, I really loved how the Doctor comes out of the TARDIS wearing a dapper hat, because
he does look very
you've used the word
hat.
dapper. I've written down the word shocking.
What?
So, yeah.
Dare you?
Wow.
Well, as a fellow baldy, I'm with you there 100%, Ben.
Absolutely. We're looking shocking and dapper, buddy. Yes. Yeah. And, something else I made note of. The absolute nerd in me loves that way back in these old production days, before anyone really, I would assume, cared that much about continuity, they cared enough to give the Monk's TARDIS the exact same sound effects as the Doctor's TARDIS, Mm-hmm. And then we get to that amazing moment where we actually get to see the chameleon circuit work for the very first time ever. And
well, we could if the flipping episode existed.
Oh, but we kind of get it, It's just...
Damn you, BBC.
I don't think there'd be much difference between what they've managed to do on the recon with some stills and what they would have done with that. And that is fascinating, because they haven't mentioned the chameleon circuit probably since Unearthly Child, or the first part of Tribe of Gum. So it's something that we, with the benefit of hindsight, notice now and go, oh yeah, chameleon circuit, lovely.
Yeah.
But at the time, that came kind of out of nowhere for the audience. They were like, what? Because, by this point, people probably aren't remembering why the TARDIS looks like a police box. It just, that's what it is. So, yeah, this was incredibly sophisticated.
I think it's also fun how the actual producers remembered what the actual thing was, because this isn't the actual team who started the show by this point. Everyone's roles has been replaced by somebody else. And for somehow they still know that the reason that it's a police box is because it's supposed to actually change. And so I love how the producers or the writers or whoever realize, hey, we've got the monk and he has a TARDIS with a chameleon circuit that actually works. So why don't we show that and have some fun with it? And I don't know. It's really funny how when the doctor goes in there and he's messing around with the monk's TARDIS, he doesn't change it immediately to a police box, because it goes to a motorcycle and then a carriage and then a covered wagon and a tank. And I think it's because the doctor is having fun, because his personal TARDIS has not worked for so long. He's just having fun pressing buttons and seeing what he can do until he actually gets to the police box.
It is incredible that you've got that kind of Doctor Who DNA continuity, the chameleon circuit. You've got the ancient Egypt setting, and to an extent you've got the monk, and they're all just being kind of thrown away as treading water while this big long Dalek story's going on. And at the time it was just padding, but now we look back at this and go, this is some really amazing and important stuff that just coincidentally occurs during Daleks Master Plan.
I agree that it's padding, but at the same time, it's the padding in this story that I absolutely adore. I adore these little moments. I adore these fun, great character things. And maybe part of the problem is thinking of the Daleks Master Plan as one story. Maybe it's better to think of it as a streaming season, like something you get on Disney Plus or a Netflix. Serial. Yeah, it's like a 13-part serial with one overarching plot. But there's these little mini plots that happen in each episode. And the little Egypt mini arc, closes off with we haven't really got there yet. But because we get to an episode that actually moves. Number 10, counterplot. We are seeing moving Butterworth and moving Egyptians and moving Daleks and awesome.
And moving Sarah Kingdom.
What was that?
Sorry, that's Homer Simpson.
Sorry, we're just having a moment there, Ben. It's fine.
She's nice.
She's lovely.
She's good. I'm glad she's joined the show. I hope she sticks around.
Yeah, I'm hoping that she's going to be at least 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
She has got staying power. I think you all would agree. So. I have to point out one of the greatest things in this episode that we get to see, because it actually is moving. We get to see Mavic Chen practically bitch slap a Dalek in the face.
I wrote that down, yeah.
In the face! And the Dalek is actually stunned by this, because he kind of shakes his little dome a couple of times, almost as if he's saying, wait, what the hell just actually happened here?
Does he know who I am? I'm Jeff the Dalek. Come, where's he? Let me at him. Oh boy, I'll shoot that Mavic Chen. It was amazing, wasn't it?
Wasn't it?
Just wiggles his eye stalk and storms off in an alien hissy fit.
Have we ever seen anyone on this show, past or future, ever lay hands on a Dalek and get away with it? It's amazing.
No, and in terms of credibility and taking what you've just said about seeing it as a series of tonally different mini arcs within one overarching story, it's kind of a sort of comedy moment, but it's still a Dalek, and it would have just shot him dead there and then. That would have been game over.
I think something else that fascinates me about this whole moment is, say we had episode 9 actually existing and not episode 10, we would never have known that this moment happened, because there's nothing in the dialogue that really...
That's very true.
And it really makes me think how many amazing visual moments are just completely lost forever because It's so sad and so fascinating at the same time. Absolutely love it. And it's funny because there's also precedent throughout this whole 12 episode arc of Chen and the Daleks getting on each other's nerves. And because this reminded me that we forgot to mention something that happened in episode 6, Coronas of the Sun. It's probably the greatest Dalek line ever. It was when the Daleks and Chen were having this argument because, I don't know if you remember, Chen went back to Earth to get the Tyranium, but then they fell into that matter transmitter and they went to Myra and blah, blah, blah. And so Chen made up this story where he was like, I sent them there on purpose so that the Daleks could go there and get them easier. And the Dalek Supreme wasn't taking it. And he actually said to him, you make your incompetence sound like an achievement, which that came out of a Dalek. That is such a good line. And so they're always just, the Daleks and Chen, they're always having this back and forth. And I wonder how that's going to end up, you know?
Oh, you reminded me of something else as well. When we talked last time, Ian, I think, was asking, why did they have Carlton in the show to begin with? And he's this kind of character who you get the distinct impression the first chance he gets, he is going to screw with Mavic Chen and take his place.
He's going to be huge.
And then you don't see him again. I think maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I think it's a bit of foreshadowing for how it's going to pan out with Chen and the Daleks. So Chen thinks he's this genius who is destined to take power as soon as the Daleks have done what they've got to do, and it all goes horribly pear-shaped when they get found out and rumbled.
See, yeah, because I guess they knew the ending they were working to, so they put in all these little hints, you know. And
maybe.
Speaking of stuff that we forgot to mention, and I'm sorry, and then I'll get back. There's a moment in episode 5. I'm kicking myself that we did not mention this. Do you remember when they sent the probe to Myra and it's got little bitty mice in it?
Yeah.
And the Daleks find this probe. They say there's little creatures in it, and they decide to shoot them and kill them because they don't know what they are. They do not use the word exterminate.
No.
This is the first time in this show where they kill something that on Earth we usually use the word exterminate for. Like, you get an exterminator to kill mice. And the one time that they have the opportunity to kill mice, they don't say exterminate. That shows some restraint, I think.
Would that have been the BBC sort of inadvertently advertising Rent-A-Kill if they'd done that and they had to take evasive action so as to remain within the remit of their charter and not do an advert? There's a really standout Stephen moment in this particular episode where the Doctor sort of proudly unveils the monk's directional control. And Stephen, who has become quite shouty and one note by this point, just goes, directional! And that kind of leads to a trope of him where he just sort of angrily shouts one random word from every sentence. And that becomes his acting for the rest of, certainly for this story. So
which in another 20 years Colin Baker would be doing.
Absolutely. So for the rest of this episode, I'm going to, as a tribute to Stephen Taylor, I'm just going to pick random words that you guys say, and I'm just going to shout them in a very earnest and annoying fashion.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that Stephen is probably one of the weaker elements of this. His character just seems so purposely... he's always bitching, he's always bitching.
He is. And considering he's one of the companions in the whole kind of, 60-year run of the show, he's from the future, he's a space pilot, he knows about the Daleks, he's one of the best equipped to do something about them and engage with them. But all he does is sort of pick random words out of other people and shout them, or sort of through gritted teeth and flounce about under that enormous hair structure. And
he must have been a terrible pilot. I think he was a terrible pilot.
He's just sitting there and he's going, left!
You know, they're
Cabin
like,
service!
Commander Taylor, come in. How are you, sir? Crashing! You know, just...
Need a wee!
Return your seats to the upright position.
Oh, didn't you love how they had the voice audio thing, the little loud speaker moment, and Chin, in typical old person fashion, cannot figure out how to work it. And that Dalek screams at him, "Go on, the voice audio is functioning."
The voice audio. Oh my god.
Oh god.
I can't.
Sorry,
I can't
go
get
on.
it to. I can't. How do you make it? I can't do. Oh, someone's weed in my trousers.
Man. And then at the end we get one of those great Billy fluffs when he says, "I had to hand over the real Tyranium core to Magic Chin."
Magic
Chin.
Chin.
Bless him.
He really is a magic Chin.
Maverick Chin.
Magic
Maverick Chin.
Now, to be fair, I have to admit, I did write up some, notes here, and I kept finding that Microsoft Word kept auto-changing Mavic to Magic in my actual notes here, so I can't really give Hartnell that much of a,
What you're saying is that William Hartnell's mind was so ahead of its time, it operated on the same algorithmic precepts as a piece of word software that was created. Yeah, wow.
Whenever he did a Billy fluff, a little paperclip would appear in his mind saying, "Are you sure you're trying to say that?"
Is this the human you meant to save?
Which just makes his performance all that much better, because think of everything he was dealing with.
Yeah.
Well, I think that if there are some episodes, if we have to have some episodes missing and some found, this is a really good one to actually have, because there's a lot of fun moments, because we actually get to see the Peter Butterworth monk actually moving, and you see his little facial movements. It's great. The Doctor gets some really good commanding moments, and he has some little moments of charm. You get a great Billy fluff. You see Mavic Chin bitch slap a Dalek. The set pieces look great. You get a little thing of 1960s Daleks warfare where they're slowly chasing Egyptians and blowing them down, and just there's a great console scene. So, and this ends one of the mini arcs where you see the monk get stuck on that ice planet, and so I hate that so many are missing, but just like episode 2, this offers so much interesting things that it's a decent one to actually have.
Yeah, I know it's probably going to be too much for them to animate, but it would be great if we could get it as a... Because it's obviously, because so many of it's missing, we haven't really had too many commercial releases apart from the audio soundtracks and the excellent episodes.
Well, they haven't done any full William first Doctor ones yet, so I don't know. I mean, maybe one of the things that I love about Master Plan is the constantly changing settings, and that might be something that makes this really expensive to animate, where every episode they have to have a different spot, and sometimes in one episode like Feast of Stephen you're going to 3-4 places, so I don't know.
One day, maybe one day
it will come back. Yes, it will come back.
Think so.
Well, there's only 2 more episodes to go, man. Can you guys do it?
Ian, have you got the staying power?
I have things to say. This is my platform. This is my time. I'm good to go.
So we go back to Kemble.
Yeah, finally. And then the Doctor just sort of goes on vacation.
Yeah.
No, he's just sort of wanders off for a bit.
He does sort of appear at the start of episode 11, right? He's in a couple of scenes, and then he doesn't appear until the next episode, which is, I think, quite a more sophisticated way of doing it, because you don't really notice anything untoward. You know, you don't think, oh, where's Hartnell gone down the boozer? You know, the story quite naturally follows the other characters, so it's a slightly more sophisticated way of giving him, you know, a week off. Much like with more recently with like I think Capaldi in is it Flatline, where he recorded all his stuff in the TARDIS in probably about 12 minutes on a lunch hour, so he could have a week off. Yeah, and you know, if you put someone in even just one or two scenes, then they're in the episode, and it stops being a thing. So, but then obviously we do follow Shouty Stephen. As he and his hair explore the deserted base, actually the first thing I wanted to talk about was the sort of Galactic Council meeting where they want to have a censure motion against Mavic Chen. It's a bit like a meeting of the G7, where Chen is this sort of blustering, inept liar, is like a sort of Boris Johnson figure, but one who can talk in joined-up sentences.
Don't you love how
he can probably use a pen
says,
better as well?
You know, like someone asked him, why has Chen been given information that has been held back from us? And Chen's line is, though we are all equal partners in this great conquest, some of us are more equal than others. That's a great douchebag political line.
It's interesting because without getting too spoilery, but you know, why the hell not? This is an ancient story, and everyone that's listening to this knows exactly what's going to happen. But Chen seems to be absolutely politically in control and operating frantically to kind of keep his position and maintain his status in the hierarchy. And as we know, he's basically barking mad.
He's bat poop crazy towards the end.
So he's kind of his levels of sanity are crumbling, probably as a result of all this quite frantic repositioning and recapitulation of his position. So it's really good to watch him at work.
And it's totally built up to this. You know, this has been 10 episodes of seeing him being smooth and in control and saying all the right things to make everybody on the planet Earth follow him and fall in absolute love with him and want to, you know, die for him. And now he's getting to the point where everything's starting to slip, and he's kind of almost trying to convince himself using the same language that he uses to convince people like, you know, Sarah to trust him completely. He's
sort of classic narcissist.
Absolutely, it's you know, and obviously we've been spoilt in recent years on both sides of the Atlantic with examples of that kind of personality in the current political zeitgeist. So this is like a really unexpectedly accurate and brilliant evisceration of just that kind of narcissistic political figure.
And just think if like this if this whole story had been condensed down to maybe 4 episodes, I don't think you would get that satisfaction in a weird way of seeing this slow descent into, oh crap, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I need to stay in control. And he just starts shooting people. He becomes desperate. It would have happened too fast. So, but again, thinking of this as a Netflix series as opposed to one long story, you see that development, and I love this story. I absolutely love this story.
You're absolutely right, and you know, yes, it is. Right from episode 1. Is it Kevin Stoney as Mavic Chen?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's given such a brilliant, over the top, and yet at the same time, understated is the wrong word, but controlled and measured performance. He's not playing it for laughs. He's not camping it up. He's identified this as being one of the great bastard roles that you get in your career, and he's absolutely made the most of it. It's incredible.
He has some very quiet moments too. I mean, we're always talking about his like shouting and his over the topness, which is fun, but there's some real quiet, sinister moments too. That, yeah, man, you're right. Kevin Stoney, just what a Oh, and the great thing is, we don't get Mavic Chen back in the future, but we do get Kevin back playing someone arguably almost as interesting as this guy in The Invasion. So look forward to that, folks.
Yeah, we'll be covering that in about 2046. So meanwhile, Stephen and Sarah Kingdom are making their way through the abandoned Dalek base, and ultimately the episode builds towards them discovering the new Dalek base, which is underneath the old Dalek base.
Underneath the old city.
Yeah.
I think the first one was a city. This one was like...
Right, because I got confused. I thought, who builds a base under their own secret base? That's a level of paranoia that... I'd expect it of Mavic Chen, but I wouldn't expect it of the Daleks. They seem so cocksure.
It's... Okay, so something interesting happening here, because this is the episode before the end when everything just goes to hell, And we start with the Doctor and the Daleks, and in the beginning of the episode, the Doctor is suddenly gone. Then as the episode goes on, the Daleks are suddenly gone, and it oddly seems to turn up the anxiety factor.
It's quite eerie, isn't it?
And it's like they're building to something, and suddenly your main villains are gone. Your main protagonist hero gone, and then it seems like Chen is gone too, and you're like, what is going on? And I gotta say, whenever Chen turns up at the very end, like they see his ship blow up and they think that he's dead, but then he shows up again. It's kind of a plot twist for kids, but I still like it, because like even they even give Sarah the laugh out loud line of "But you're dead," and I think she did that for the kids to kind of aid in their shock at this massive plot twist.
I think so, because it's an elaborate subterfuge where he destroys his own ship to buy himself about 30 seconds to rush back through some bracken and get back to the Dalek city in order that he can then march in and go, "I'm Mavic Chen, I'm not dead." And they'll be like, "Oh, we thought we'd got rid of you. Jesus, she's back again. Oh, God."
And Stephen goes, "Mavic Chen?"
Yeah, he'd just go, "Mavic!" And the hair would quiver in the wind. So
it's funny, because if this was done for the benefit of kids, then it's kind of twisted, because next week should make kids seek therapy, probably, with what happens.
We're kind of there now. So before we go into the final episode, I just want to say, seriously, imagine the tone meeting. We've had 11 weeks of what is, to a greater or lesser extent, a sort of jolly sci-fi romp with comedy moments and fun settings, and the comedy episode, The Feast of Stephen, and they're thinking, right, let's wrap up this gentle, fun story we've been telling, and they choose to conclude it with the most kind of bleak, blood-curdling, and horrific 5 minutes of Doctor Who that has ever, to date, been broadcast. I think it's absolutely astonishing. I can't. The first time I saw it, I literally couldn't believe what I was watching, because it isn't a great climax, because it absolutely is, but it just doesn't fit with anything that's gone before. It's like they just sort of go from second gear to eighth gear in a Mercedes Formula One car. It's just such a violent lurch of tone that I found it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, I had literally one word left to say, and I couldn't think of one. So now you've put me back on the spot, and I'm going to have to come at it again.
Okay.
I literally I can't even remember the sentence now. I'm just gonna channel Stephen Taylor and just go, tone.
I am in awe about how much tension has been built up for this episode, and you're right. It's like, by the beginning of episode 12, fun and games are completely over. The silly adventure is in the past. Shit has got real. And everything is just adding and building. Like, oh God, they go back to the music and the background sounds from the very first Dalek story, you know. So they've got that weird backward bell droning, and it's just it's all just building, and
the sound of the time destructor as well is quite. I don't know. There's something. It's so delicate and mild and kind of musical and kind of pretty. It's like a sort of, you know, it's like the siren from Greek mythology. It's an attractive sound. It's a comforting sound, but it's radiating this kind. Well, it's like a sort of time radiation, effectively. Yeah. And it's so terrifying and so evil.
Yeah, it's like there's this point, I guess, around the midpoint when they turn it on, and you just hear the time destructor just going constantly. And I don't think they're really playing, music either. It's just, that's just this constant kind of, just constant over everything. And it's just building and building. And, oh, God, I love the story. The moment where Chen comes back into the Daleks base, and he's got Steven and Sarah, and he's acting like he's captured them and he's going to give them back, and he comes in and he's all grand and political. He does one of his very last Guardian of the Solar System have once again helped the Daleks with their plans, and he's all grand and political, and he's doing the performance that got the Earth people to practically worship him, and he thinks it's going to keep on working. And the Dalek Supreme simply says, "Our alliance has ended." And he says it simply. He doesn't say it with, he doesn't shout. He just says it. Mm-hmm. And I love how he says that, and then the Daleks don't say anything else for a good couple of 2, 3, 4 minutes. And Chen is outraged, he's like, "I have helped you over and over with your incompetence. How can you do that?" And the Daleks are just sitting there staring, and they're being completely quiet. And I don't think we've seen anything like this on Doctor Who up to this point. Because, the Daleks are usually totally on edge and shouty, but not here. They're just complete. Isn't it cool? I mean,
it's such a contrast to the chase, isn't it?
The Daleks just sitting here staring at him while he is raving. This is where I think they feel the most, I guess, what's the word? Alien. Yeah. This is the most alien feeling to me, where they're just staring.
And it's the perfect device to kind of underpin that moment where Mavic Chen finally loses what semblance of sanity he had. Yeah, he's accusing the Doctor of trying to replace him in the power struggle, and then he starts shouting and bellowing and ordering the Daleks and being smug with them, and he says, "Well, I assume from your silence you've decided to accept my instructions." And I've written down, he is such a twat. And then and the Daleks have never been quite as menacing, because as the audience, they're not going to put up with this bell end anymore. And they're kind of toying with him, but by remaining utterly motionless. And you can sort of, if they had mouths, they'd be doing a little sort of knowing grin. It's really chilling and really icy. And
isn't it? And then Chen just goes one step too far, pulls out the gun, shoots, and that's when they're like, "Okay." All right, get him out of here, kill him, but don't do it in here. Take him away. It's just awesome.
Yeah. Don't get any mess in here, or we'll have to get Winston Wolfe round to sort us out. So then Chen sort of pegs it down the corridor, and long story short, they exterminate him, and there's this great close-up on his body, and I sort of half expected his corpse to sit up and go, "I, Mavic Chen, am dead."
Oh yeah, because he's an alien.
Raising his pinky as he does it.
And he finally gets in one last speech. He's like, "I am immortal, the first ruler of the universe."
Yeah, absolutely gone. And then obviously he is absolutely gone, and we've, and we're into the final act where the Doctor basically decides,
as if the tension couldn't get any worse. It's horrific.
He's grabbed the controller. He's going to make a run for it.
I think that is a cool ass entrance. I know we can't see it, but I love how the Daleks and the viewers have been, distracted by the dumpster fire that is Mavic Chin. All the shouting and the grandstanding, and then the Doctor just slips in, completely not noticed by anyone. It's badass. I love that, and the Daleks Supreme had really set up how it's important to keep this area safe. You can't shoot off any weapons here. So then whenever the Doctor takes the time destructor, you've already kind of been set up that, this is really, geez. And then he turns it on and that sound happens and just, fucking great. And the mood change in the Daleks is incredible. Because with Mavic Chin, they were not worried. They were not bothered. Mavic Chin was not even worth shouting at. They just sat back and watched him go completely nuts. But now the Doctor has showed up. He's got the time destructor. He's switched it on, and they are panicked. I mean, listen to the quality of the voice acting in the Daleks Supreme. He's totally freaked out. And there's this moment where the Doctor is giving orders. Dalek, stand back, come over here. And the Dalek Supreme says, "Do what he says." I mean, he is completely. I've never heard a Dalek that panicked, that absolutely scared. I wish I had the words to express how unbelievably cool I find this.
I think there's a direct line between that moment and the end of Bad Wolf, where the Daleks have got Rose and they're on the scanner with the Doctor, and he's saying, "No, I'm gonna rescue you, Rose Tyler, and I'm gonna. Doesn't it just scare you to death? I've got no plan. I've got no this, that, the other." And they are, palpably backing off from the screen. They're terrified of him, and it's like a race memory leading back to this moment when he's absolutely wrested control of the situation from them, and they are terrified.
That is such a good point. This, Ian, you're right. I think this is the moment where he earns the title, The Oncoming Storm. This. I mean, you can practically imagine sweat forming on the Daleks Supreme's dome. He's just and okay. I do want to pause for a minute. Let's just take a pause, slow down, take a deep breath, and consider that. The way I am so fascinated with the way the Dalek delivers that line. Do what he says. Because at the time that this was made, okay, Doctor Who was still probably considered a kids show. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
And also, this episode was intended to be seen only one time. One time. And to this very day, to today, June 2021, nobody has seen this since. And the voice actor could not be seen, so it's not like he was trying to show off for some sort of a talent scout who had noticed his performance more than other Daleks. And yet there's so much fear and panic given to that single line. He didn't half-ass it. He didn't say it like a bored robot. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I insist that this is the greatest Doctor Who story ever, because who would go to that amount of trouble for a kids show that's only going to be seen one freaking time? It amazes me.
I quite agree. He delivers it like he's in some kind of 60s London gangster movie and Bob Hoskins is about to skewer his legs or something. It's so imperiled. There's such a palpable sense of terror. And you're right, it is a remarkable bit of acting from, as you say, someone who's got absolutely nothing to gain by it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think the last episode, I kept saying how there was so much love in this. This is kind of what I'm talking about. Love for the craft, love for the acting, love for doing this crazy thing. And it really makes me think, because you always hear these stories about how behind the scenes Hartnell and the producer weren't on the same page and they were fighting. But if that was actually going on, then that makes this even more impressive to me, because they're rising above all these behind the scene politics, and they're putting on an amazing show. And love this show.
And of course, the Doctor and Sarah get their moment to do their sort of heroic bit, trying to save the day, and it's all just going to hell in a handcart. The planet is gradually aging itself to death, and the Daleks start to crumble.
What do you guys think of the way that Loose Cannon tried to visualize
well,
this?
considering they got nothing to work with,
I thought it was remarkably effective. I mean, you get sort of one jarring shot of I guess a late middle-aged Jean Marsh, and you suddenly think, hang on, what? And then, she starts to slowly turn into kind of Zelda from Terrorhawks, just the level of decay and degeneration as Sorrow Kingdom ages before our eyes, and it's genuinely horrific, isn't it? It's the first time I saw it, I was staggered, and I'm just watching a reconstruction. I'm just looking at a few stills, but my God,
how did they do that?
And how did they do that? And how did they think that was an appropriate thing to show children?
and
I know it's not the sort of peril they're going to get into, but it's horrific.
And on top of all that, you've still got that time destructor noise, going. But then now there's this howling wind that's been mixed into it, and it's just the tension and it's relentless. Yes, relentless. That's the perfect word. I mean, like, Hartnell falls and he's covered in dust and
cobwebs.
Gosh! And then there's this moment where Stephen he's in the TARDIS and he looks at the scanner and he sees them, and he runs out and he's trying to help the Doctor, and the Doctor's screaming in agony. He's screaming. It's so unsettling. Like,
I wrote down when he says, get back to the ship to Stephen. It is genuine. It's blood curdling.
And the first thing,
it's not children's TV anymore. He says it's life or death.
He says, "Don't touch me. Get back to the ship." You're right, Ian. Just chilling. And Stephen disobeys and brings him in. And there's this very quick blink and you miss moment that I adore. Once they're both safe inside the TARDIS and the doors shut, and you stop hearing the wind, you stop hearing the time destructor going on, the Doctor, in a whisper, says to Stephen, "Thank you, my friend." I almost lose it every time I hear this, if I'm really thinking about it, because Hartnell, the actor, put so much emotion in there. And I think it's because the Doctor knew how close he was to actually this being the absolute end for him. He probably felt more close to death than he ever had. And because he could feel that time destructor just breaking him down. And he lasted longer because he's a Time Lord, obviously, and Sarah wasn't. But I just love how he is truly, legitimately grateful to Stephen. There isn't any bluster. It's almost like this is the most humble moment of gratitude I've seen up to this point. And it warms my heart every time. And Ian, I'm so sorry I keep talking over you, man.
I think, as a downbeat ending to the story, and the people watching are going to be reeling from the death of Sarah, but obviously the Time Destructor also destroys all the Daleks on Campbell, so ultimately the Doctor and Stephen have won, get back into the TARDIS, dematerialise. The story's over. Phew. But I have a serious point to bring up here. If you're the producer of the show, and it's starting to occur to you that you need to get rid of your lead man, and you're going to spend the next sort of 6 months thinking of increasingly ridiculous ways of getting rid of the Doctor, was this not the perfect moment for the first regeneration? Because the Doctor's absorbed all that time radiation. Why couldn't he have just sat up and been Patrick Troughton? Wouldn't that have been something?
Oh man, I had never thought of that. And it's probably one of those things where you think about that retroactively because now we know about regeneration, and they obviously hadn't thought of that. But you're right. The ending to this would have been so much better than 10th Planet Part 4, actually, if that had actually happened. I never thought of that. You're right.
I just, watching it, I just thought, this is the moment. He's, that's your radiation from Metabellus 3. That's your falling off the Pharos Project Tower. That's Wilf knocking on some glass. That's something that you can't possibly survive.
Oh, well, there it is. Steven comes and screws it up. That's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, he presses the reverse button that they've handily built on the. But no, I just that's what I thought as a Doctor Who fan who hasn't seen all this yet, and obviously I know really when he regenerates and what happens and so forth. But with the behind the scenes kind of sense that it was coming to an end, and they wanted to get rid of Hartnell and this being to date the biggest Doctor Who story they'd ever made, would it not have been the sort of ultimate cherry on top of the cake to do the switcheroo right there and then, and just I just felt that was a really organic place to do it.
That is such a good observation. I never thought that is so neat, because honestly, the end of 10th Planet 4, it's not as satisfying, I mean, you really don't know what happens.
I've not got there yet, but I was listening to something the other day where they said it was kind of shoehorned in at the end, and it didn't really have any bearing on the story. There was no sense of the story kind of building up to a moment such as that, whereas this one absolutely did, and it just feels like it would have been the perfect time, I think.
Was it not a different producer when they did finally come to the conclusion to go with regeneration?
Well, that would explain it, and that would shut me up, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it.
I'm still fine.
I don't think John Lloyd was the producer. Was it? No.
Yeah, John Wiles is in control at the moment. With Donald Tosh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And here at the very end, I think it always got to me how at the end Steven is completely sick of the whole thing. He just wants to leave. And then he name checks all the friends that they have lost over the 13 weeks, and he mentions Brett Vaughn. It's funny how Steven considered Brett a companion, but the fans didn't. And he mentions Katarina. I mean, can people even remember Katarina from 4 months ago? And it's just, and then the very last line of this whole 13 story arc is the Doctor saying, "What a waste, what a terrible waste." And that is the perfect ending line to an amazing series. Compare that to the final line in Trial of a Time Lord: carrot juice, carrot juice, carrot juice.
Well, I was thinking of the final line of Warriors of the Deep when the Doctor says there should have been another way, which
also
I loved that line also when good. I was,
Isn't his final line in the 10th Planet?
Keep warm.
No, the final line in the 10th Planet is, "Who's that over there?" "Why, it's Peter Capaldi. I'm just going to go over here and see what's going on."
But I'll tell you,
no, you're so right. It would have been a great finale for him.
So this was so huge. Where could the show possibly go from here? How could you ever top this amazing ending? It comes up. It says, "Stay tuned next week for War of God." They're going to have a war with God. That's how they're going to top this, man.
It's true. The stakes do seem to be rising as the show goes through its kind of slightly bleak, dark, nasty, gothic, emo phase. I don't know. It's I feel as someone making the pilgrimage for the first time that the show is very much coming off the rails or off the tracks and kind of heading into really dark places now.
Yes.
So we'll watch and see what happens next with great interest.
We're going a bit cross country.
Yeah, it's got lost in the woods and it's having a crafty fag up against a larch.
Well, may I give my closing arguments about why I think
you may?
Okay.
You may.
back in part 1 of this podcast, in the Mind Probe, Ian asked me what my favorite monster was, and I actually stumbled. Because A, nobody has honestly ever asked me that, and 2, I kind of realized in that moment that I don't really have a favorite monster, because I honestly do not watch Doctor Who for the, monsters. I mean, sure, the monsters can be fun, but it's never been the major, draw for me. I watched number 1 for the character of the Doctor, which I love and I find interesting, and for all of the character moments that are associated with, him or her. It's why I can usually find something interesting in even the very worst stories there are. So when you have 1, a lot of great character moments, 2, a great plot, and 3, engaging monsters and villains, it just adds up to a total classic. And Dalek Master Plan has all 3 of those things, overwhelmingly. The Doctor's character is amazing in this. He shows kindness. It's amazing. People always say that Hartnell it's this evil, cranky, sexist guy, but he's so kind in this. I mean, the way he treats Katarina, he respects her place of her affection. He doesn't mock her. It's full of kindness. The Daleks are characters. They are not robots. I mean, they have amazing moments like you make your incompetence sound like an achievement. The Doctor and the Daleks are more evenly matched than ever. I mean, one week the Doctor wins, the next week the Dalek wins, so-and-so. You have these one-off characters who are more fleshed out than what we will get in maybe stuff we see in the freaking 80s. Like, for example, Carlton. And he's just like this simple one-off character. The acting, everyone from the lowliest tech to William Hartnell, you would never know that there were these production problems. It seems so well-oiled and thought out. The absolute bravery with introducing to us 3 completely new companions, getting us to really care for them, and then killing them off one by one. What the hell? Bravery. The imagination in terms of visuals from the 3 episodes that we actually have, it makes you just furious at what are we missing in all of these other ones. We get the very first Doctor Who Christmas special, and we get the very first Doctor Who New Year's special. We get freaking Time Meddler Part 2. And the secret weapon that this story has is it refuses to be boring. I mean, we have 13 episodes of 13 episodes of anything has the potential to become boring and tedious, like, hello, Trial of a Time Lord, maybe. But the story has place settings that change nearly every single week. The viewer is given so much variety that you don't fall into absolute tedium. I mean, the story is long, but it refuses to be boring. You got Caveman Prison Planet on 1 week, Volcano Planet the next week, Cricket Field 1 week, Hollywood, Ancient Egypt. And that's one reason why the recons are easy to watch. Well, easier than most, because you're constantly getting these changing things. Just imagine the Sensorites being a recon. And the number one reason is...
Ian's dropping
Sorry,
off.
and the number one reason is the end, the climax. It absolutely pays off. Everything in episode 12 works. Everything. There has never been a more satisfying ending to a story that I can think of. Like, again, 14 weeks of Trial of a Time Lord for what? But not here. 12 weeks, they stick the landing. John Nathan Turner is full of shit whenever he said that fans look at the past through rose-colored glasses. I'm sorry, man. The past was better. Those glasses were not rose-colored. They were colored black and white. I rest my case. I'll be selling a CD of that after the show in the back of my car. So,
I think you should.
Well, I think after all that, we ought to rate this mother.
Oof.
I think we'll go to Ben first, seeing as you've got your dander up.
Yes.
I mean, I think I know what the answer's going to be, but what are you going to rate this out of 10?
My
Ben?
dander is up. I have to rate this, And guys, Doctor Who fandom has gotten a little weird in the last 4 to 5 years. What with Twice Upon a Time and the timeless children's stuff. And so, for me, viewing Dalek Master Plan is an absolute joy, because the bottom line is sometimes it's nice to be reminded why you like the thing that you like. And so, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Ian's last name that I don't actually know, there are simply no numbers large enough to express my feelings for this story. However, if I am limited to a 10-point scale, I must give it 11.
Whoa, there we go. Okay, I'm going to go next. It's just a phenomenal story. It's an epic in every sense of the word. It sums up everything I love about 60s Who. Hartnell is just... I know he gets the old Billy fluff, but he's just brilliant in this. I love him in this. The companions across the board are so good, and you really care for them, and it really hurts when they go. The Daleks I don't think have ever been as badass as they are in this. The variety from week to week, okay, so Feast of Stephen, it's a bit silly, but I can forgive it. It's just phenomenal, and it's my favourite 60s story, so I've got to give it 10 out of 10. Ian.
So it's already got 21 points.
Yep.
Where to begin? It's a very interesting thing. The first time I watched it, I really enjoyed the first half, and I found the second half to be a load of kind of tiresome padding, and then the somewhat out of the blue gear change for that horrific ending. The second time of watching it, I found the first half more of a struggle, and the second half, because I was expecting it to annoy me and kind of tread water, I actually found it a lot more engaging. So I think the more you watch it, different parts of it will stand out and grow on you. And I think that's the mark of any really rich text, is that it has, there's always undiscovered stuff in there to enjoy, and your opinions will change and vary. Tonally, it's all over the place. It's awful. So, Feast of Stephen, it's terrible. That last episode comes totally out of the blue, and the last 5 minutes are genuinely terrifying and horrific. As a means of occupying 3 months of TV, with keeping this one story going, keeping those plates spinning, I think it did a fairly good job, given that they changed the writers at the midpoint, and we don't quite really have a clear understanding of what Terry Nation would have done if he'd been writing another 6 episodes compared to what Dennis Spooner did. I'm going to give it, in Roman numerals, I'm going to give it X, because it's been made very clear to me that if I don't, I will be tossed into the time lash.
You can give it whatever score you like, Ian.
I'm going to give it an X.
No
I'm not going to give it a 10, but I will give it an X. Which sure, it's equal. It's just different, because I think this is different. It, as you say, it is like a Netflix miniseries. It can exist outside of the rest of Doctor Who, as it's like the War Games, It's one of those. Yeah. It's one of those big sprawling epics that can live or die on its own rules, with no greater adherence to the series surrounding it. I think the deaths are extraordinary. I think whether it was an attempt to do something different, to push the boundaries of the show, or whether it was just that there were no boundaries yet and they could just literally turn on
boundaries.
Boundaries. It's just wild and dynamic and exciting and kinetic and propulsive, and you compare it to things like the Flash Gordon serials of the 40s, the RKO stuff. It's like that. Okay. It's just a genius spiraling, semi-Ouroboros kind of story. It's brilliant. It's flawed. My Christ, it's flawed, but it's brilliant. So I'm giving it an X.
I love that.
Excellent.
Because, end of the day, it sticks the freaking landing. How many other Doctor Who episodes can say that? I mean, really, even New Who episodes. So awesome. I was about ready to scream, because you gave Web Planet a freaking 10. So.
I liked Webplan.
I liked
yes,
Webplan.
You really did. Anyway, enough of our jabbering. Let's find out what you guys think of Daleks Master Plan.
I've got mail.
Okay, so Benjamin, have you got your?
I've got two things that you forwarded to me. One is from a Mr. Dwayne Bunny. He says simply,
from the Sirens of Audio.
He said simply, "It's good. A lot longer than my review." So, see, you guys should have had Dwayne Bunny here, and you could have wrapped this up in one episode.
The brevity of the Daleks stuff.
You've also been sent a message from a Thomas Ross Cooley Aiken.
Oh, yeah, that's Ross from Gallifrey.
Oh, okay. Hello, Ross. He says, I love this overlong masterpiece. It is up there in my wish list of must be found or animated. Yes, I am a lover of the animated reconstructions. Kevin Stoney is brilliant as Mavic Chen. Plus, the monk is back. It is a great space opera and thriller at the same time. And Ross, I completely agree.
I agree too. Excellent. Thank you, Ross, and thank you, Ben, for reading those out. We've had a bit of audio feedback. No, it's not from Ben from Indiana.
I forgot.
Here. No, we've had a couple of bits, actually. So our first bit of audio feedback is from long-standing friend of the show, Andy Moore.
Now then, fellas, the Daleks Master Plan. It gives us a space and time hopping mixed bag of death, 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 and more death, with a strong start, a strong ending, and loads of fanning about in the middle. It also gives us Nick Courtney, Gene Marsh, Kevin Stoney, Peter Butterworth, and yes, ladies and gents, the one and only Brian Cant. But let's not beat about the bush, chaps. We all know it's really all about the Feast of Stephen. The rest of it is ultimately just tawdry garnish draped upon its magnificently sturdy and bushy Christmas tree. Merry holidays.
All I'm going to say, Ben, is you've done very well for all of your audio feedbacks, but I think you're getting a little bit of competition now.
Hey, seriously though, the little setup that you have, where you have that 1 minute sort of thing that you have to say it in, that's actually really interesting. It kind of forces you to think up something to fit into just under 1 minute.
Yeah, it's be economical.
It's kind of fun, you know. And the funny thing is, I will listen to the episodes whenever they come out, and I'll hear me do a little 1 minute spiel, and I'll get really embarrassed. Like, why did I say that? Oh, jeez. So.
Your bits are generally the best bits of the show, mate, so I wouldn't worry.
Stop it, you.
It's true.
You guys.
So I have heard from Barbara on Twitter, @BarbaraYataxa. And they say, the core team of the Doctor, Stephen and Sarah is one of the strongest in the entire show. The constantly shifting locations keep the story fresh and engaging, and the darker tone makes this serial feel almost like a different show. Katerina, perhaps the most ill-conceived companion ever, is given an incredibly powerful exit through her sacrifice. The deaths of Katerina, Brett and Sarah culminate in Stephen having possibly the best character moment of any companion in the classic series, as he finds himself disillusioned with the Doctor, a theme that resurfaces in the massacre and contributes to his departure to do something good with his life in the Savages. The return of the monk and the debut of Nicholas Courtney make an excellent serial historic. I think this serial set the mark for much of what was to come. Yeah, you're not wrong, Barbara. Thank you for that. That's marvellous. I've also heard from David Kitchen. G'day, David. He's very succinct as well. He just says, it's the peak of 1960s Doctor Who.
I would agree.
I think you can really argue with that, yeah. Well, given our scores, yeah. And the last one from me, I think Dwayne felt a bit bad for just saying his sort of single-line review, so he's come back with a slightly more detailed response. So he's saying, what an epic. Like the War Games, the episode count never seems to detract from the story, and it's never boring. This is like The Chase, but without the comedy. With not 1 but 2 horrific companion deaths, this would have to rank as one of the darkest Doctor Who stories ever made. That episode 5 scene with all the cast on the trampoline is such a simple effect, but so trippy and atmospheric at the same time. And of course, no Dalek story is quite the same without Tristram Carey's weird and wonderful music. Yeah. As someone who is not the greatest fan of the Daleks, they are never served better than in the black and white era, and this is another perfect example of why Dalek Mania took off in the 60s. Love it. Excellent. Thank you, Dwayne Bunny. And you should check out The Sirens of Audio. It's a great podcast all about Big Finish, so have a listen to that if you've not heard it before. Dwayne's been on our show before. He's great. And before we go to Ian, we've got another bit of audio feedback. This time it's from Harry from the Who Can Convince You podcast. So let's hear what he's got to say.
Hello there, it's Harry from that other podcast. What can I say that hasn't been already said about the Daleks Master Plan? Is there any point in saying anything else, or probably not? Am I going to go on and say something? Probably. To be fair, I think my first time finding anything out about the Dalek Master Plan was the Lost in Time box set. I think there was a couple of episodes, well, probably all of the surviving ones on there. I've got this niggling feeling that the BBC has another episode of this. I don't know why, I'm not quite sure, but I think they might have one. Don't know, who knows, probably a lie. Fibbing. But yeah, it's bloody brilliant. I think it's a fantastic story. Got it on vinyl as well, even better. Yeah, it's marvellous. It's great. Take care.
And thank you, Harry. Over to you, Ian. Who have you heard
So
from?
we've heard from Simon J, who says, it's another of those where you watch a surviving episode, get hooked, and as the end credits roll, you realise there's nothing coming next. Thank goodness for the efforts of fans to fill those gaps. Rich Tipple says, Doctor Who's most epic adventure and my personal favourite. DJ Proteus says, I just want to see the destruction of time before I'm wiped from this perpetual serial we call life. Anyway, it's very good. Philip Edney, who is, I believe, the other host of Sirens of Audio.
That's
Thank
right.
heavens, or I would have sounded very stupid indeed. Philip Edney writes, this is one of the most epic and ambitious stories that Doctor Who has ever tried to tell. One core solid world built around Kemble, many planets, times and enemies to fight, a handful of heroes against all odds, and a Christmas episode. I need this back. Finally, Tim from the Missing Episodes podcast sums up the Daleks Master Plan thusly. Like me, he writes, it's incredibly sexy, but with a lot of flab. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, you're not alone on that one, my friend. That's excellent. Thank you all so much for your feedback. Oh, this has been a great show.
Can I say something really quick? I over the past 2 episodes, I've been talking about how I feel like there's a lot of love in Dalek Master Plan. It comes bleeding out in the performances and everything. It's kind of how I feel about this podcast. You guys garner so much positivity for this silly old show. It's really a joy to listen to and to hear people interact, and just it's always a fun listen, and it just leaves me feeling great and happy about the fandom, about the show, about life. So there is a lot of love in this podcast. So I want to thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
Bless your cotton socks. That's lovely to hear, although things will be different when we get onto the third Doctor. And the
way to
6th.
ruin a moment there, Ian.
And the 10th.
But of course, what Ben was saying wouldn't be happening unless we had you fantastic listeners coming back with all your amazing feedback. So if you want to get in touch with us to let us know what you think of an upcoming story, we will be listing all the various ways you can get in touch over our end credits. So it leaves us just to wrap things up and say thank you once again to Ben Schneider for being our guest.
Thank you, boys. Hope I didn't wear out my welcome. Thank you so much.
Oh, not at all. You are welcome back anytime.
It's been wonderful to talk to you, and thank you so much, not only for coming on in the first place, but for keeping it up as long as you have. I'm very impressed.
That's what she said.
Well, yeah.
I try to exercise. Thank you.
It's been an absolute joy to talk to you, and it's also been an absolute joy, again, to get so much great listener feedback. So thanks to everyone.
Oh, it's like a big loving.
Isn't it? I love it. Tell your mom, tell your dad, we were super rad.
If you'd like to get in touch, you can email us at mailbagofrassilon@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter @TimeEndSpacePod, and you can also find us on Facebook. If you want to leave some audio feedback, there is a link in the show notes. You can use your phone or your computer and leave up to 60 seconds of feedback, or if you're listening via the Anchor website, you can click on the message button and leave your audio. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you to Momo Tempo for providing our theme music. Wow, that sounded so thought out and professional.
That was a nice sort of penny whistle sound effect there. I like that. Well, can we use that? We'll clip that and use that in all subsequent episodes.
Awesome. Copyright Schneider 2021. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
You'll get a cut of the money that we get from the podcast.
Ooh.
I'd be happy to give him 33.3% of that money.
Base
really?
bucks.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Don't spend it all at once. Right, so are we going to do the mind probe, or are we not going to bother this week?
No, because we did it last time, didn't we?
Yeah.
There's nothing to be gained by doing it again.
Well, I mean, it's always fun to probe our guests. All right, so
I have been
we'll just
probed.
do a welcome back and go straight in.
Okay.
So we should be, if my memory serves correctly, we're starting with the Feast of Stephen.
Oh, yeah.
If we're going chronologically.
Oh, yes.
Okay.